You're listening to Traumedy, the podcast that helps you take your pain and play with it. And yes, there's a lot of pain to play with around town these days in this country, in my opinion. I am struggling a little bit here and there. I've been dissociating, I notice, a little more than usual. And my form of dissociation is playing computer chess. Also binge watched an episode or a season of Survivor. I don't know. There's a part of me, I think that I'm like, we see who's in power now by who's thinking about being a prepper. I'm thinking about being a prepper. I'm watching bushcrafting videos. I have a lot of dry beans in my pantry, y'all, in glass jars. I have dry beans, so they last longer in glass jars, apparently. And I am thinking about getting a ham radio. I'm highly recommending it. I'm putting that out there. Get your ham radio. Listen, I lived through a coup of the government in Nepal and the king, and we have an alleged leader who is trying to call himself a king. The king of Nepal shut off the internet, shut off the landlines, and shut off the cell phones for 11 days. I'm telling you, they have this ability, and look at North Korea or China. There's not real internet access over there. So if we need to organize, also, I just need to be heard. And well, you get a ham radio, or let's go back to CB radios of the 70s. Can I do Traumedy on a CB radio? Breaker 19 for the funny girl. That used to be my handle. Funny girl. Oh, when we used to go on family vacations. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Breaker 19 for the saddest clown. I just want to say I love you and you're not alone. That's all I'm going to say. And okay, it's not all I'm going to say. I'm going to say some more right now. I haven't even introduced myself. You already know me if you're listening to Traumedy. My name is Nancy Norton. I am a comedian now and a keynote speaker, and I used to work as a registered nurse. I'm a 5th-generation nurse, and before that, we were witches. So do not mess with me. I want to help heal myself and others, but if you are causing harm to me or the people I love, I don't know. There's a different way of there's different ways of healing. Let's just say that. That we may put out in the universe. I always like to put out a mirror. May you get exactly what you deserve. How's that feel? So let's all do our best by ourselves and by others, and let's keep each other company on this journey. By the way, speaking of keeping each other company, if you don't mind, I'm just going to tell you I have a link tree on my website. You can go to upcoming shows at nancynorton.tv. Nurses Off the Charts is coming back to Dallas April 3rd. I don't know why. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff in Texas. Moms Unhinged is coming up in San Antonio. And in March, Heroes Off Duty in Dallas and Fort Worth. And those are going to be all of those are very different shows, very different content. Even though I'm in them, very different content for each of those shows. Also, would love to know, would you want to come see Traumedy live and be a part of Traumedying? Maybe we help co-create some comedy together around something painful in our lives. All right, think about it. Let me know if you'd be interested. This episode does deal with the topic of suicide, and our guest this week is one of my favorites, and he's so able to articulate a point in such a succinct way. I shouldn't even talk during the episode. I just want to sit back and listen, but I keep trying to say something, and then I'm thinking, I don't need to say that much. Enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to Traumedy. My guest this week is back by popular demand. My demand. Welcome, Von Sprecken.
Hey, what's going on? Hi. Hello. How we doing?
Von is a comedian, a storyteller, and a studier of the world, I would say.
I hope to be. I do my best to be observant, and it's hard because the first thing you observe when you start really paying attention is just how limited you are. Like that's Socrates said it,
yeah,
right?
That's very Socratic.
If I know that I know nothing, then I'm still might be the smartest person. And I think about that probably every day.
I know.
I want to know everything. It's so hard not to know things, and yet it's just the fundamental aspect of our existence, isn't it?
Always you have nuggets. And I just saw your moth. Is it?
Yeah,
your-
Moth Radio Hour is what it's called. I think when it's on, like it's broadcast on NPR. I don't know for sure if I'm going to be on the radio yet. It might though, but I think it takes some time before they decide that. It's also just like a local storytelling competition, and a podcast. But yeah, anybody, it's in like the storytelling space. It's like one of the more famous, well-known sort of storytelling shows out there. People from all walks of life. Some of them are very funny. Some of them are extremely sad or serious. Like you get everything in there. And there's always like a theme. Their rule is like, you got to do it in a time limit. You got to do it on like at least vaguely on the theme of that night. And you've got to do, and then, no notes and to a live audience. That's like the basics of a moth talk. So yeah, I had 5 minutes to talk about maybe the worst day of my life. And it was weird because it's also like some of the best writing I've ever done. And if anyone wants to see this talk, I don't think we're allowed to like rebroadcast it without permission from the Moth, but they do let me post it on my website. So vonsprecken.com. You can see side by side, I've posted like some of my comedy, which is like about addiction and mental health. And so that's sort of like, I even juxtapose it with a yin yang, and I've got like the light side with a bit of darkness, and that's my comedy with a bit of impact. And then on the other side, I've got like impact with a bit of comedy. I talk about, and I talked about this the last time I was on the podcast, but the day I found my brother, I had dealt with addiction issues and mental health issues in my life, but I had started to recover very well. And then I lived with my brother who was going through the same thing as me. But just, he's like a little bit behind. But because I had gotten better, I mean, I was so sure he was going to get better right up until the moment that I found him and I found his body. And I really try and create that. And I show the...
let's take a breath here for
sure,
just a second.
Sure.
And I understand you. I understand when you posted about it, what I saw was, it feels so strange because you won that night. Like you were
won a contest.
You won the
story.
contest with a story about possibly, was it the worst day of your life?
I think so.
It's right up there. Let's just, we don't, I mean, one of the worst mm-hmm. moments of your life,
mm-hmm.
finding your brother, and the shock, like you said, building up like, just anticipating something that is going to be good, like he's going to get well like you got well.
Mm-hmm.
And I won like 2016 Truth Be Told Grand Slam storytelling, and I thought, you know what, I need to tell a story that I don't think is a winner. Like, so they always said the comedy stories usually win,
mm-hmm.
and I thought I just needed to tell this story that was about the worst day of my life, which
mm-hmm.
was losing my baby
mm-hmm.
in a miscarriage. And it was also full of hope and also full of excitement and like what's possible. And so I totally relate to what you're saying,
mm-hmm.
Of something that's like heading in this trajectory and then just sudden complete drop off. But
I incorporate humor into the story a bit. Like I even like encourage the audience to laugh a little bit, and then I get them laughing to sort of give them like it's a little messed up, but I wanted to give them the real feeling of what it was like for me. And so I build to a bit of like a silly moment and a bit of a laugh right before I kind of pull the rug out from under them.
Right. And I also, that's why I want to talk about traumedy on that really quickly, is that you and I said this earlier in the living room. We were just saying, like, we cannot help but release the tension with humor.
Mm-hmm.
And same, my story was super serious, super sad, lost a baby, but cannot help but put little traumedy
mm-hmm.
in there. But the point is, that wasn't the point of the story. The point, I think what my therapist says is that humor makes it manageable, tolerable. Like it's just too raw. You
mm-hmm.
know, and it helps people stay the course with you, keep their heart open. Because sometimes people might shut down if you start telling them something they can't, like I used to be a comedian for activist theater. So anyway, just wanted to say, I understand like how it feels. Like, does it feel like you exploited your brother's death, or did I exploit my baby's death? I don't know. It's I was just curious because you wrote about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it was weird. Even like, I remember even the day that it happened, just this vague notion of like, oh, one day I'm going to talk about this in public. Like that's part of like who I am. I had already been doing comedy for years at this point. I knew I wanted to do some sort of like activism. I had started talking around like sort of political issues and like social commentary. And I remember as I was going through it, just like, obviously wasn't ready that day. I was just crying that day, but I had this vague notion of like, oh, one day I'm going to talk about this in public. Like I knew, like it was, there's also this big sense of like what I'm going through. So many people are going through. I mean, I'd already been at this point in the mental hospital. I'd been in rehab. I had, so I had been in communities of people where their entire family had also been torn apart like this. Like, and I'd also been very cognizant of the fact that like this kind of thing is on the rise. Addiction is on its way up. Deaths of despair, they call it, right? Suicide or death by overdose. These things are currently on the rise. People are feeling insecure about the future. They're feeling insecure about their place in a society that we feel has gotten, just kind of out of our control, certainly as individuals, but even as groups, like, and we're more isolated. We're, ironically, right. Social media and the internet, we're more connected than ever. We can see more than ever. A tragedy across the world. We know about, every atrocity that is happening. And yet we're in some ways more disconnected. It's more impersonal. A lot of the foundations that we rely on to survive as humans have sort of been swept out from under us and digitized and privatized and turned into profits. And, we don't, like, what is that movie? Like Network? Like, we know our food's not fit to eat and our water's not fit to drink and our air's not fit to breathe. And it's like, that was in the 70s. He said that. It is not improved.
Yeah. Although you're drinking some tap water.
Yeah. Well, it's probably fine, right? It's cool.
It's good enough. Fine is a very vague word, but I would say if we did some analysis on that, we'd find some. But there's no getting away from it. There's stuff everywhere. There's microplastics.
Yeah.
But again, we will get to talk about a little bit about the digitization of our culture and social media. But this moth, so what I'm hearing you say is that you knew you would talk about it someday, and you would talk about it with purpose.
Yeah,
and that
it's not just me.
It's not just you.
I knew it just in an innate way. I knew it's not just me. Yeah,
and it's kind of a parallel story because here's your story where I was on the brink of suicide myself, and I came through. And then so it's a success story. And then I loved, man, I'm sorry to get ahead, but I loved how you ended it.
Yeah, I won't spoil it, I guess. I hope people go and watch it, but I do try and bring it back around to like, it wasn't just darkness. Like there's still hope in this story. Despite this being the worst thing. And actually that's why in a way I hesitate to call it the worst day of my life, because it was maybe one of the worst things that happened to me, but because of the growth that I'd done, I was able to cope with it far better than I ever had before. There were days when my problems were objectively less, and yet I was like on the floor, curled up in a ball, crying, wanting to die. Whereas this was like, oh, this hurt so bad, and yet my capacity to handle that hurt had expanded, by many multiples.
Yeah. So post-traumatic growth is a lot what we're about here. And maybe that was the wrong way to state that, is to say the worst day, the most painful day.
Yeah.
Losing my baby was the most painful thing I've ever been through. And yet I always say that baby gave birth to me.
Wow. Yeah.
And it did. It changed me.
Yeah.
Forever. And it opened up something in me. I suddenly could write poetry that I'd never written. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying it just started flowing out of me. And it cracked my heart open in a way I had not felt so deeply in my entire life. So thank you for going back and just kind of helping me like that. That's not the way to put that. The worst day, the most painful day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because probably the worst that I've ever really felt in my life was like the despair of, when I was in an active addiction, when I wanted to die, like that was, because I think the worst thing is to feel not just in pain, but like alone and doomed. You know what I mean? Like just that fatalistic sort of, not only do I feel this way, but this is all this is. This is all life is. And I could never really let myself fully give in like that. Like despite everything, it felt like my whole life, just a chunk of me being ripped out. But I still couldn't convince myself. I knew too much. I knew myself too well. I knew more about life and had the perspective to realize like, no matter how bad this feels right now, I know this isn't it. And I know I'm not alone. I was able to lean on the people around me in a way that I hadn't been able to before. I was able to lean inward on myself in a way that I never had before. I was able to take inspiration from, art, literature, poetry, other people and their stories. I was just not,
you were more resourced.
Yeah. I had the strength to bear it. There's that picture that's like circulating online where it sort of talks about like how pain is relative. There's like an adult wolf and his back is full of arrows, but he's still standing. And then there's a puppy with one arrow and the puppy's down. And like, that used to be me. It was like, yeah, the pain that you can take when you feel small is so much less. It seems so much more devastating than when you've managed to grow. You can just bear a lot more. And it still hurts. I don't know. I remember, so when I was in middle school, I got bit by a black widow. And they have like a pretty powerful neurotoxin, and I got bit right next to my spine. So I was the pain is kind of indescribable. Like it attacks your nerves directly. So this stuff, I mean, like I was, and I started feeling it like in the middle of the night. I was out camping and I felt it, and it felt like someone was like digging their elbow, like full, like the worst massage you've ever gotten where they're just like elbowing you in the back. And it just kept building. And I was like, God, what is that? And I get up, and like almost as soon as I stood up and my blood maybe circulated it a bit, like I started shaking, I started crying, and then for a week after this, I sweated so much, like I didn't pee for like 4 days. Like everything I drank, my body sweated out. I couldn't walk the first few days. I had like no appetite. I would just like shake and sweat. Just like convulsing and pain. I can't describe the pain. It was like someone was sawing my back.
Oh my God. Nerve pain is terrible.
And that though, I thought that was the worst pain I'd ever go through. And then finding my brother, I'd have gotten bit by a black widow every day for a year. Wow. If he got to come back and be happy, like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah. Wow. That says so much. It says so much about your love for him, so much about what you would be willing to sacrifice your comfort for him.
Yeah. Wow. I think about it a lot. I mean, it's, because this is one of the things that I've, I guess, come to believe is that like, as conscious beings, each of us is capable of experiencing either heaven or hell. And I think that's real here on earth. You don't have to have any metaphysical sort of belief to believe that like consciousness, it fundamentally is magic. We still can't really explain it. It's still the fact that we are here and experiencing this, and that it can be either infinitely good or infinitely bad. And often, obviously, we'll be somewhere in between. And in fact, you might argue like you can't have infinite good without at least a little touch of bad. Otherwise, what even is the contrast? We need a little bit of struggle. We need something to overcome, I think, to feel whole in this life. But also, just knowing that about like that to me, kind of cements the like the idea that the soul is infinitely valuable, right? That to the extent you can help someone in this life, like that is a conscious soul capable of experiencing infinite beauty. And to the extent that we help ourselves and each other do that, for lack of a better term, like that's God's work, man. And so the idea that like, oh, if I had to suffer physically for a time in order to bring him back and to show him what I mean when I say that, like when I tell him that I love him, for him to really understand, I don't know that he did. I don't think that he felt he deserved that. That's one of the worst things about depression, is that sort of that blocking yourself off inward and not even being able to feel it when good things happen to you. And I think maybe he knew intellectually that people loved him, but I don't know that he really internalized it or felt it the way he internalized his pain. And that's hell. I've been through that, and I recognize it. And if I could have showed him heaven, man, like, what wouldn't you give to share that with people?
In my recovery work, we are learning to reparent ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 60s, and for the first time in my life, I'm starting to love myself.
Yeah.
Love myself, like as a verb, but also as a like, I love you, like I sometimes I talk like a 2-year-old, because every now and then when that mean voice is saying something negative about me, I correct it as a part of my inner family system. My little inner toddler, she'll say, I love myself. And then it's like, wait, you can't argue with a 2-year-old that loves themselves. But I would say, how can anyone, I don't feel like I could like people could tell you they love you or whatever. It just doesn't resonate unless you are loving yourself. And it's so hard. And I don't know which comes first. It's not a chicken or the egg thing. But I do think in reparenting, if our parents had attuned with us, had told us we're valuable, told us showed us they loved us for who we are, not as an extension of them, which is my experience. But anyway, I'm just saying with your brother, it's like you had said in the previous episode, how no matter what they told you, it just doesn't make sense until you internalize it, and it almost comes from the inside out. Like all of a sudden, all the stuff that you'd been hearing or reading or learning, once you got it, it's like this epiphany moment, like the reverse of the dominoes falling. The dominoes stand up. They're like, wait a second.
Huh.
I'm
yeah,
a
that's
whole.
a cool image.
It is. I just had that come to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am a whole and worthy being.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know. I hope that you've found some peace. Like, you must have done everything you could. I know, knowing you.
Oh yeah, helped him for years.
And to reach him, and to, he got into treatment, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's weird because like obviously looking back, I just wonder all the time, like, what else could I have done? I mean, really, this is kind of the theme of my comedy is like, and so like I didn't even go on stage for probably like 8 months after, but as I started getting back out, I was like, and I would try and make some of the jokes I'd made before, and I was like, I just don't care about this. Like, there's nothing that I'm going to talk about if it's not trying to help people. And I realized like, all like, and I talked about this a bit last time, but like, I want the 7 specials, each based on a chakra, each sort of how I messed up this area of my life, and then how maybe I overcompensated, and then how I brought it back into balance, and kind of, integrated this part of myself back into the whole. And I think once you're in that sort of alignment, life is, you don't need to justify it. It is the reason that it exists, the reason that it is good becomes so self-evident that you don't have to, what is the meaning of, like, you don't know, you don't have to know. It's just beautiful just to experience it. Just even when it's painful, it's so inherently self-justifying.
I was going to say, like, organic. Like a tree doesn't have to justify its existence.
Yeah.
It's like you
just are.
You just are.
Go.
Yes.
And it's one, each one of them has their own sort of, you are, you feel, you do, you love, you speak, you see,
Wow.
You just do these things because, like, and it's in every spiritual tradition. It's just accept everything for what it is. Try and align your will with God's, whatever your conception of that is. Try to, just be. Just Ram Dass, man, be here now.
Oh,
It's so
love it.
It's
love
it's
so
so
much.
simple and yet difficult, right? A lot of things that are very, very
Yeah,
simple are actually the hardest to accept because our mind loves a problem and it'll create one where there's not one.
I know it's so
I don't
true.
know.
But sharing this with a group, with a, that's now possibly to be broadcast, and how does it feel after? Can you feel any difference in your body environment? Do you feel any stronger spiritual connection with your brother? I would just love to hear like some of the before and is there any difference, the before and after, as publicly sharing it versus you already had all these thoughts before, but now that you've shared it with a larger audience?
Yeah. Having the opportunity to kind of work through it and write through it gives you a lot of chance to kind of process your own feelings. And so much of this is unconscious. That's the other thing. Like, so much of spirituality and power over the mind and all these things, people don't realize, like, it's not just the conscious mind. That is the tip of the iceberg. Most of what you think yourself to be, most of what your expectations are about life, most of how we interpret things happens in a very subconscious or even unconscious way. And that's why, like, talking earlier about, like, why is it so hard? Some people, you can tell them you love them all day, but they just won't feel it. And that's why, and that's that journey you're talking about of like, oh, and then it seems like it happens all at once. It's like, well, because you have to be persistent and patient. And it is like a child, as you were kind of describing earlier, that you really got to show it. You can't just say it over and over. Although, like, mantras and affirmations help in a way, but mostly just to kind of keep you persistent and in line. And then once you kind of start to open up and accept that on a subconscious and emotional level, there's an author I really like, this book on trauma I read, where he talks about, like, the body is the subconscious mind. Like, there's so many nerves, and science has really started to open up on this. We're like, oh yeah, the gut is almost like its own brain. You also, I think we talked about this last time, how many nerves the heart has.
I love
there are other, and this is why I got into chakras. I didn't believe it in at all until I had kind of an experience of just meditating and realizing, like, from the inside out, yeah, there's points along you that they have a sentience in a way. Obviously you're still an integrated body, but, like, even that concept, that sense of identity and self, that's mostly this, like, subconscious sort of feeling-based construct. And yeah, when kids, and so many are these days, like, to some degree neglected, obviously abuse is prevalent. And even if you had, like, a kind of a normal childhood growing up, and modern society is such a weird, unnatural environment compared to like the close-knit community that, in our distant past, our tribal past, our village past, that's what we were sort of designed to grow up in. And today it's so fractured and weird and chaotic and everything changes so fast. And that's hard for us to grow up in. And we develop a fractured, strange sense of self, an uncomfortable sense of self. And so many of it, this is why we walk around with this anxiety of like, oh man, something's wrong and I don't even know what. It's like, Well,
maybe this leads into some of the social media stuff where it's like the difference between being externally referenced, like, oh, how many likes did I get versus how much do I like myself right now? And just connecting with oneself versus like, oh my gosh, this phone in my hand is an extension of me now that tells me, am I okay?
Yeah.
And
am I popular enough?
Am I safe?
Right.
Because when we try to apply our tribal brain and to that, it just doesn't quite work, But I don't know. I guess it's where we're headed. I was going to say also on your point about healthy childhood versus whatever, but we all know that there's generational trauma and all these survival traits that came down through the generations that come out as sideways sometimes, like shame, healthy shame versus toxic shame, and all these kinds of things that people are having to deal with. I've had to learn, like with my recovery work, is so much about what, reparenting and also making amends to my own son and like, hey, a living amends. Like I cannot offload my self-hate and shame, to another person. Like sometimes in a moment of a flash of anger or insecurity, like it can come out sideways, that generational trauma. Anyway, I don't know. I've just found I'm so much more forgiving of my parents now that I'm a parent, because I think, man, all it takes to do bad parenting is a lack of sleep sometimes.
Oh yeah.
So,
which once again, so many people now, we're overworked, we're overstressed, we're eating bad, we're dehydrated. And then we wonder why, like, we're passing all this anxiety on to our kids. It's like, because we've created a world where like, you gotta be anxious to live. And then we wonder, it starts to spill over and affect people's mental health. Like it's a miracle we've lasted this long, really. It's of course this is happening.
And also when we see things like The Social Dilemma, the documentary about it's also like how some of that is being instilled in us for profit. But I would love to talk. Do you want to talk more about the Moth Hour? I have a question about the Moth Hour.
Yeah.
And then but I had one question, because when I did the Story Slam, the people that ran it were very much about making sure it's a story versus stand-up. And so they said, you can't take the microphone out of the stand.
Yeah.
And is that true for the Moth Hour? So that, because I do a lot of act outs in my act, and I have to tell you, it was interesting because it actually forced me to be more expressive verbally.
Yeah.
So when I practiced it at home, because I learned the hard way that I had run over my time in a previous slam, and I'd just gotten to the peak of the story at the bell. They're like, oh crap, I just pooped on everybody and then I didn't get a chance to clean it up. Oh, no. So I practiced it in front of a mirror, and it was interesting, like what my body did, and I had to use your words, Nancy. But so did you find, I was just curious, when you do the stories, do you find it that different?
Oh, just having the mic in the stand. It is, it does feel more personal in a way. Like there is this element of, like people cross their arms when they're kind of feeling defensive. In a way, the microphone when you're doing stand-up has an element of that to it, like an element of I'm holding this thing in front of me. And even though, especially like the more practiced you get, you learn to kind of hold it away from your face. But there's still, sometimes when I'm practicing bits unconsciously, my arm comes up. Like even when I'm at home, when I'm like rehearsing, do you ever do like when you start like going through your head in a bit and like all of a sudden your hand comes to your chest, because there's this protectiveness. There's this, I'm holding the talking stick.
I always call it my security blanket. It's a security blanket for me.
And I've
but also I've learned, I'm sorry to interrupt, but anyway, you had the talking stick.
Oh, well, I'm doing it now.
Man, I have the talking stick.
And I've talked about that. Like I've done a lot of shows in venues where we really don't require a microphone. Like the room is small enough, or the acoustics are good enough where if I went out there, even with zero equipment, and started talking, I could project to the back of the room. But people, when they watch stand up, they also expect you, like there's an authority that's conveyed from holding that microphone. There's a sort of, and the way you hold it is also like almost a part of your character on stage. I saw a thing recently where they're like, the further down you hold the microphone, the more relaxed you want to appear to the audience. Which is why it's so, and a lot of newbies, they choke up on it. They hold it with both hands. They hold it right up on their face. And it's, there's an element of, but it conveys like, hey, this is a stand-up show. When you get in front of an audience, even if it's a small room and you're holding that mic, you're letting them know like, yeah, I got the talking stick. This is part of my authority. When you hold that arm in front of your chest, it's half of a crossed arm stance. You know, that there's that element of like,
it also has a little fist. It looks like a little fist too.
Yeah,
it's like, I could throw a punch.
It's weird on a very,
throw a punchline.
And once again, this is like so subconscious, and it doesn't mean, it's not to say that like you can still be very vulnerable in stand up. You can still, but there is an element of once it's in the microphone and it's almost like out of your control, and you're gesturing with both hands. There's also an element of like, this is more open. This is more vulnerable. It is. It's
That's a good
subtle.
observation. Good observation.
And it's more like you're talking in a regular conversation, because you can use both hands to gesticulate, and you're, just the way that the audience kind of has a full view of your body, and there's no hiding, unless if you make the conscious decision to cross your arms, but now that's a new decision. That's a different decision than the sort of unconscious holding one arm in front of you with a mic.
Right. What's interesting to me too is you were saying about holding it down versus up and all this stuff. I'm very, very hyper aware of how I use a microphone. But as a female voice, listen to the timbre of your voice, the strength of your voice. And as somebody who has testosterone, although I am taking testosterone now, let's see what happens.
Okay.
But
I'm going to get ripped. Oh man, Buff Nance is going to be a force of nature.
Uncle Nance. I would like to do one pull-up before I die. That's my goal. So it's a lofty goal, and to die with
literally
Pete.
Lofty. You're gonna get up there. All right.
Let me levitate. So, but what I was going to say was, I teach when I teach women, especially, I tell them to. It's called eat the microphone.
Right. Yeah.
Eat the microphone. Although my pet peeve is when somebody takes an SM58 microphone, which has a certain cardioid shape, and I don't like when they blow over the top of it.
Yep.
Like I noticed, I worked with some comedians last week, and the female was holding it at her chin, but like perpendicular to the floor, and blowing over it. And I was just like, you're making me mad. Like, use it, And so have the angle. I usually hold it within a couple of inches.
Yeah.
But then I also the microphone is an extension. It's a prop. The cord is a whip. The cord can be held up high and held down, like I'm at a wrestling or a boxing tournament or something. And then I change the effect. Like I can punctuate things. I found I'm so sensitive to now, dependent I get, or it's just part of me. It's integrated with me as part of my vocal cords. And so when I do keynotes, they're like, would you like a headset? No. I could use a headset, but then I can't do, like I scratch on the microphone sometimes. I knock on it when I'm doing something. I love using it as a tool on stage, because to me, it makes it's more interesting to the audience to have sound effects and impact and high voice, low voice, and talk closer to the microphone, or choke up on it when you're doing an impression of something.
Yeah. I gave that feedback. I was at a feedback mic not long ago, and a newbie, he holds it like one of the big mistakes that some people make early on is they hold it like a rapper, right? Like by the head of the microphone. Those are special mics. When rappers are doing that, those are designed to be held that way. When you do it and you're not using that special mic, it just distorts your voice, which, as you said, though, that can be an intentional tool. When I want to do like a drive-through voice, when I want to do like a sort of anything that I want to sound a little echoey and digital, this
is your captain speaking.
Hold on to it and talk to it like that. And anyone who can't see us at home, you can probably tell, though, there was a difference between what we just did. But
with the Moth Hour, I love that it's like, okay, you really. I mean, you still can lean into the microphone. You could probably knock on the microphone if you wanted to, or scratch it, or do. But for the most part, it's just they don't do a headset. I guess I see that on TED Talks. Usually they have a headset, but which is not the same as a Moth storytelling. But anyway, I'm just fascinated by some of the craft, the craft of storytelling.
I also think it's good to get. I wouldn't mess with the mic, because I feel like the point of especially that story, and the moth in general. Like, you can do a funny story, but one of the rules I forgot about the moth was it's got to be true.
Yes.
At least according to your memory. And like, yeah, there are bits that I sort of like embellish a bit. Like, I tell the part about like pulling his backpack out, and that really happened, but I didn't do, I'm like a magician, is this your card? And I kind of do this big act out, but I do this big flourish moment, and that's like an exaggeration, but that's very much how it felt. Like, it's true to the emotion of the moment where I like figured this thing out.
It's more of a metaphor.
Yeah. It's not meant to be taken literally, but it also very much, it's true in that it very much conveys how that moment really felt. Like this moment of triumph. And no, I didn't like yell. I wasn't like, oh yeah. But what I did was like, hey, like it was more like a almost like slightly, I don't know, almost like smug, sort of like, ha ha ha, I told you I'd do it. Like, it was more like that, but I like, obviously I add this big flourish to sort of show the audience like how elated I felt in this moment.
And I suppose you can compress time, just like you did with the thing of the arc of leading up to he's going to get better and then the abrupt drop off.
Yeah.
You can, it's still a true story, but obviously storytelling, time is going to get compressed.
Right.
And so how many years did it take before you were ready to tell that story?
It's been 3 years since he passed.
God, that's still so recent.
Kinda. I don't know.
To me, it is.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So this is why I still haven't done like full comedy about it. I've started exploring I have already decided I'm going to do this ideally in a stand-up special. It's going to be a part of it, but like the moment itself, I have no desire to make funny. I don't think it should be like day of, like hour of, nothing really funny happened there. I just cried a lot and had to, talk to the authorities and talk to my family. But there were things around it. And
that's what we talk with
story,
Traumedy. We talk about concentric circles out.
When I tell people the first time, I didn't laugh out loud, but the first time I remembered life is still funny after he died, when we were at the funeral home, and we have to look over a menu of snacks for the funeral, and just the bizarreness of that. The funeral director being like, what kind of charcuterie do you think your loved one would have most? Yeah, see, like that's inherently insane. Like, it's ridiculous. This idea of like, I think right before he passed, he was really concerned about like, I don't know if I should do this. What kind of charcuterie are they going to pick? Oh God, should I? Yeah, I don't know. Do I include that in the note? Like,
they better have, I would like to put it out there. I would like vegan snacks.
Yeah.
I have vegan charcuterie.
There you go. That's good to have an advanced directive on what kind of smorgasbord.
No, I actually, in this filing cabinet right here, I have my living trust. And you know what? I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that. I would like everything to be plant-based.
Sure.
No one's going to show up for my memorial now. Not that they were anyway.
Well, save your family a lot of money that way. Yeah, you're like, you know what? Go with the cheap snacks. Honestly, I don't want this to be a whole thing. And this way, so-and-so uncle who doesn't like that pussy food, like, he'll stay away.
What uncle doesn't like pussy food?
Phrase that weirdly. You know what I mean?
I was going to say something there that was, I don't know where it went, but anyway, that was too funny. Yeah. That was good. Mm-hmm. Good little moment of our planning hour. So that's when you knew that, okay, there's still, humor is still there. I had another guest. I do a little traumedy anyway, just naturally. You and I are talking about maybe I would love to have you on board if we start to tour traumedy, where we will take your trauma and make it funny when you're ready. So, you write down, hopefully we're not going to go right for the darkest, but who knows? We might. We don't want to limit it.
I was going to talk to you about this. Is like, we kind of started getting into this before we started recording about like suggestions I have for the show, and like being able, some of the guests you've had on here that are not comedians, like to what extent would they be down to do a little writing group and kind of like help them get people who are on board with the mission and want to help them sort of write a set, like a beginner set of comedy, and then they can perform it or not depending on who they choose. But enough of them probably will if they're interested in coming on stage and talking about it.
Well, Christy Buckley kind of does that with her comedy class at Rise.
Really?
She's a guest here.
Yeah.
So if you go to rise.com comedy, that she's teaching people to do one-person shows and stand-up. And a lot of it is about expressing trauma. She has a lot of people that come to her class that a therapist told him come to Christy's class.
Wow.
Are you going through a divorce? Then you might want to try stand-up comedy.
That's a joke that I heard Tobias Livingston when we were on a show together. He was like, yeah, when someone starts showing up consistently, my first question to them is childhood trauma or divorce. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Why? Because you do have to be so insane to do stand-up, especially starting out. You're going to suck, and to get in front of a room full of people and be like, here's something personal and interesting and I hope fun about me, and then have a room full of people look at you like, ew. Like that just, it cuts to the core. Like that goes against every human instinct. And so for someone to have that happen to them and be like, I'll try again, maybe for months, maybe for years before I get really good, man, like what kind of weirdo do you have to be to put up with that? It makes no sense. That's why it's like, oh yeah, you don't have to be crazy to do comedy, but something's got to be wrong with you, man. I don't know.
It helps.
You got to have something in you that decides either this pain isn't that bad, or whatever I have to say better be important or interesting enough, or I don't know, man.
Well, what you said earlier was like, I don't want to do it unless it helps somebody.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, I've been doing this 35 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just getting started, but I'm just going to say I started out needing to feel understood. Like I needed to feel understood. I needed to feel connection. I needed people to look at me with a smile.
Yeah.
I needed to feel like I mattered. I needed to feel like I had a sense of self-worth. It was a lot me. But I also, obviously people had to laugh. Now in this, third or like fourth decade of doing it, it's like I have to be of service. And I mean, obviously I still need to entertain. And my simple goal right now, I think my purpose on earth is to raise the frequency on earth.
Yeah.
So it's like, now that I have these skills, I've proved myself, I've won these contests, whatever, I want to give back. I want people to leave. I just have learned to love myself a little bit, saw my own soul in the mirror on psychedelic therapy. I want people to know their authentic self is worthy. I want them to love themselves.
Yep.
I ask a little prayer, let them leave feeling better than when they walked in, and with a little spark of like, maybe I'm not so bad,
Yeah. Or like we're all going through it together. Life is it's so
You're
hard
not
and
alone.
so confusing. But so much of it, like that's how I kind of end a lot of my sets. I don't know if we've talked about that, but I'll say when we gather like this, like laughter is medicine. It helps us reconnect to ourselves. It helps us connect to each other. When we share jokes and share stories, this is as healing as any hospital I've ever been in. Way cheaper though. What a deal for you guys, right? Like that's part of the whole thing.
That's great. And that's what Traumady's mission statement lately is, the co-healing. I'm really kind of getting away from like, I'm the healer. Like I'm not the healer. I mean, I am definitely can resonate with a frequency. And if you want to join me on that frequency, we can be co-healers for each other and attune. I'm so much about attunement lately. I've gotten to this idea that what we're all doing here on earth is birthing consciousness, and that we need a birth doula. And so we can be birth doulas for each other and laughing and singing and, just like resonating. And even if you're a dark worker, if you need to resonate in the commiserate, I mean, if that's where you are and that is where you need to be. But my goal is like, I'll dip into the dark, but I don't like to stay there very long.
Well, I like to do a bit of both, I think. Yeah. That's why I use like the yin yang imagery on my webpage, because I want to show people I got that range. Like obviously if I'm booked for a comedy show, I might touch on some like impactful moments, but my main job is there to entertain. But I'd also like to do more things. Yeah. More keynotes, more, mental health related things, more, I'd like to just also do, in storytelling events where it's like the main goal is to move people. The main goal is maybe a little more on the drama side. It's more on the side of like, really connect with something deep and powerful that we thought we weren't ready to face, but through the power of story, we can all collectively, by witnessing it together, by sharing that pain together, it actually becomes something beautiful. Like that is so amazing to me.
Yeah, that's art.
Yeah,
that's
the power
art.
that art has that
That
way.
is art. I always call stand-up like an ice sculpture, like a temporary art.
Yeah.
Like, even though we have these bits that we have rehearsed or that we have done hundreds, and I've done them thousands of times now.
Yeah.
Although they develop nuance, and each audience it's slightly different. And that's why I always tell people, this is temporary art and you're a part of it.
Yeah.
It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about what's between us. And that is our sculpture that we're making together.
Yeah.
I get pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
I also love that you use the yin yang, because I don't know if you've noticed on the logo of Traumedy, the black and white, I actually have tried to make that mask into a yin yang. I've tried to change the logo into a yin yang.
Yeah.
So I so vibe with you on this, Vaughn. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk, before we have closure, I want to talk about what's going on for you right now. Obviously, you shared like you're going to start doing keynotes. You've already done some, and I love that your comedy is of substance and that your storytelling is of substance. And now you're learning about social media
and marketing. So that's I'm at that point in my career where I finally built a product that I'm proud of. It is very common. Like a lot of comedians come out with merch in like their first year, and I always think that's a little odd. I mean, looking back, I'm like, I could have done that. Who cares? Just to get practice doing it. It's just like stand up. Like you don't know how to build a brand, how to build a website until you just start doing it. But I've started now at this point to start putting out stuff that I'm really proud of. And the only thing that I think that's keeping me from larger audiences is they just don't know about me yet. So I got to start promoting myself, which I've always had. It's brought up all these feelings around shame and fear of being seen. And like, it's so crazy too, because as a stand-up, I'm already so used to being in front of a room full of people. But even then, it's like there's rules. I'm taking this class that's like starting to teach these things, and like one of the rules is like, for the class, you're supposed to create at least a 30-second video every day, even if you just share it with the class, which pretty much all of mine have been. And just looking into my cell phone camera, like, man, I had a really hard time making, eye contact, so to speak, with the camera at first, because that was like it's like looking into the eye of God. It's like looking into the eye of like humanity's collective judgment. Whereas like stand up, like maybe you get like the worst heckler I've ever had is not 1% of some of the things I've seen people say on the internet though, right? Like talking to the internet and putting myself out there in that way, like feels so much more out of control, so much more vulnerable. Like people think like, oh yeah, talking about this at the Moth was like so brave. And I'm like, in a way, like who's going to condemn me for talking about this really hard thing I went through? Certainly not in public, but then putting it on the internet, oh man, the level of like scrutiny you open yourself up to, the level of, the only reason I was comfortable doing it is at a certain point I realized like no one's going to say anything that I care about, more. Like I've already processed enough of this where I'm like, I know how I feel about it, and I don't think anyone's going to say anything that's going to truly take me off guard. If it's truly vile, that's very easy for me to write off. One thing that's helped me a lot is, people can't really criticize you unless you kind of agree with it. Like if I came up to you right now and I was like, your hat looks stupid, you're not wearing a hat. If I was like, oh yeah, that green hat, that green hat, you look like an idiot, makes you look stupid. You'd sit there and be like, okay, idiot, like fine, have fun with that. Like you wouldn't care at all. But if you were wearing that hat,
if they tap into something you believe,
right? So that's the thing.
Like if you believe about yourself, oh, I'm not that funny, or I'm not that
right,
whatever.
If people tell you suck, the question is, to what extent do you agree with them, and to what extent are you going to do something about it? And it's like, and I've also kind of accepted at this point, maybe what I'm doing isn't for everyone, and I don't really care. The people that it's for are really going to love it. I would never deprive the people that are going to benefit from this for the sake of someone who like just doesn't really care that much about what I'm doing. Like they are probably fine in their own weird little world. I would help them if I could, but I'm here to help the people that I know will care. And I've started to get really good feedback. I mean, some of the stuff that I've done, people coming up after shows and telling me all these stories. That is one thing. You start talking about your mental health on stage, people can't wait to tell you about theirs after a show.
Yep.
But
anything like that, anything like that we share in a vulnerable way.
Yeah.
That people typically want to come up and bond over, or like
that's
you
how
said,
you know you're onto something.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. When I started stand up, I would see the guy with the folded arms, or the person that yawned, or looks like they're scowling at me, and then it's so funny. Like something shifts where you decide to start looking at the people who are enjoying it, and I think I have almost like a filter now where I just see the people that are vibing. Yeah. And of course, self-fulfilling prophecy as it is, the more you see people vibing, the more you're it's just, and the same with, I guess with social media, I've had a few, videos go viral, and mostly it's very, very positive, but then there's going to be snarky people.
Yeah.
They're just going to be there.
Some
and
people,
they're
I think
trolls.
It's their full-time living.
Yeah, that's
literally all they do.
They're full of self-hate. People like to offload their self-hate, their shame. They love to offload stuff. To me, I don't like toxic feeling energy. And I took down a video not too long ago because it was misunderstood. It's about my adoption of my son. And I mean, my gosh, I could not love anyone more. And the way that some of these adoptees were just, I wasn't going to take it down because they were just like, oh, way to blah, blah, blah. You're exploiting this kid, blah, blah. And then I was just like, oh my God, you don't even know he wrote these jokes. And this one woman got to me though. She said, I'm just sitting here crying because the joke, just everything I said as a joke was said to her in earnest. Like, I just bought you. You're not worth more than, like, my joke is like, you know, I adopted my son, or as he says, I bought him. And I go, it doesn't work that way. Although I did have a Groupon. And then I go, no, there's no Groupon. It's a tax credit. But the point is, this person said her adoptive mother told her she wasn't worth more than a used car, that she still had her receipt. And it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I had no idea that she's the only one that influenced me. And we're actually friends now on Facebook, and we have had dialogue. And I'm like, that, you know, I think it was a healing thing. But anyway, I did end up I said, I'm going to take this down for you, and I'm going to rework it.
Yeah.
So that people know for sure where I'm coming from.
I actually am very interested in feedback like that. Like, that is because, it's as much as I have tried to like dedicate as much of my time to learning about this, like there's just things you don't catch. There's just perspectives you just didn't quite pick up on. And I do wonder, we got lucky. Second Chance, our addiction related show got the chance to do a show in front of a symposium of all mental health and addiction professionals. And some of them were coming up to me after the show, like, oh, so good. And my first question was like, is there anything that you would correct? Is there any, like, please, like, above all, is any of this, does it have the potential to do harm?
Yeah.
And luckily, and I wonder if any of them did think that, and they just weren't the ones that came up to me. None of them that came up to me, they're like, oh, no, it was really good, really impactful. And so, like, good feedback overall. But one of my main concerns is like, talking about some of these heavy subjects, like the first thing is, I want to make people laugh, but like the first thing is do no harm, right? Like first I want to make sure, am I going to say anything
it's
that
almost
could
like
be
the
interpreted
Hippocratic oath. That's the oath, right? The Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
But it's like, gosh, though, here's the thing. We cannot please everyone. Yeah. And it is delicate. So what I try to work on, what I do is try to do more I statements, and I don't know, man. Also, it is like, it's a comedy show. So if you don't know that this is the basic is comedy, then I don't know what to tell you. There are going to be people that will find something. But like I said, these people that were just they were being such assholes to me. Like, you don't know me, you don't know my son, but that one person, and I did read hers. And then I had adoptees after I took it down, private messaging me going, I love this bit. Why did you take it down? Yeah. So you can't, if people want to be victims, that's another thing. Like, if people have a victim consciousness, if they identify as victims in this world, they might try to pull you down and go, look what you made me into a victim. You victimized me with your comedy. So you have to be careful not to give them too much power. Yeah. Too much of your talking stick. It's your talking stick. Yeah.
And it's also, gosh, I don't know. It's so complicated. Comedy inherently thrives in gray areas, and like it's always in this sort of twilight zone between sense and nonsense, and profane and profound, and smart and dumb, right? Like comedy inherently is about tickling those boundaries, and that's why. So like, I do see comedy that I see sometimes where I'm like, oh, classic example, probably the best, easiest to understand example. There is like very racist comedy. There is comedy where the subtext.
Well, the Kill Tony comics right now. The Kill Tonys.
Yeah, and their whole thing, and this is why I don't necessarily like the defense. Oh, it's just a joke, because you can definitely hide malice behind a joke. I when I was younger, I was bullied. I also was a bully at times, and I would, being in my childhood and my, the house that I was raised in, I had this like aggression I didn't know what to do with. And sometimes, if you want to single someone out and the premise of your joke is, hey, look at this person, they're worse than us, they're less than us, we don't have to treat them with the same respect we treat everyone else. It's very possible to start warming people up to those ideas when you can and then you can hide behind, oh, what is just a joke? You can't take a joke. On the other hand, have we talked about weaponization of truth? So it is true that like any fact can be taken out of context and honed into a fine point you can then use to attack your enemies or support your agenda. That's the weaponization of truth. So you can take a fact, but then use it in a way that is not true. Like this is basically politicians' entire careers are based around this. So yeah, it's technically a real statistic, but we're going to use it against people to support how we feel inside to oppress them or whatever. Like it happens all the time. And so this idea that, oh, it's just a joke. Yeah, that's true in a lot of ways. Jokes are not meant to be taken seriously. They are not. However, can you then use that fact to use that now that people are saying, oh, so I guess you can joke about anything. Well, now then I can use that fact to sort of hide my actual bigotry, my actual hatred. And then once people are sort of comfortable with that idea, you can escalate.
Like, and not even so hidden. Not even so hidden.
Sometimes not at all.
And,
yeah.
So what is the truth? What is the truth you're trying to get across underneath the humor?
Yeah.
What is the underlying message? And then also this whole concept of punching down or punching up. And I just want to say, can I just give you, I know our listeners are like, wow, the way that you, no, it's just so cool the way you succinctly described weaponizing truth.
Well, and here's the problem. I'll really quick. I do want to defending on the other side. You can also weaponize being offended, and this is what these guys tend to get really puffed up about that, where it's like, so yeah, they say, oh, it's just a joke, and maybe some of them, and maybe not all of them, and that's the problem is you can't tell their intentions and what they really feel, and so they'll say, oh, it's just a joke, and then on the other end of that, there are people that I could really tell a joke that comes from the best place, from the bottom of my heart, really trying to help people. And someone whose job it is to get offended all day and to try and take people down and gain internet points, whatever that way. Although internet points can in some forums be converted into actual money and people do make their living being controversial. And so just the fact that I even say the word suicide in a set without even watching it, without even caring, they will take that and say, look at this person making this joke. So yeah, can you weaponize the fact that jokes aren't to be taken seriously to hide actual bigotry? Yeah. Can you also weaponize the fact that jokes do exist in this weird gray area to then professionally get offended and to take down someone who had no ill will in their heart? Both of those things are true.
And then teasing out what's the difference between being offended and actual harm.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And that's I want to go back to another phrase that you just threw out there that I've been making a little bookmark to call back to, which is, I think could be the name of one of your specials, tickling the boundaries.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I was like tickling the boundaries and, nuance. And is there an equation of I'm offended versus I am harmed? What? I mean, there's all I don't know that there's a formula that we could come up with that we could say succinctly, well, now you're causing harm. And what's harmful today, I did jokes in the 90s that I got to tell you, I still think have merit.
Yeah.
And it was an impression of my landlady who was from Hong Kong, who had it was a really good impression of her.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about all Chinese people. I'm not talking about all people that have this accent, although I would say she's from Arkansas. I don't know why she talks like that. But it was a really good impression of Florence Tian, my actual landlady, saying things she actually said to me.
Yeah.
And then the punchline was the hero's journey, where I got to be back in the position of power because she was this extremely wealthy woman who lived in Hawaii. Of course, when the Chinese take over the world, I guess we can do a Chinese accent again because it'll be punching up, right?
Yeah.
Although, is it punching down? Is it punching down? She's in a position of power. She is my landlady. She did have this accent.
Right.
I was beholden to her. Anyway.
Well, still no, and that's a fascinating, great example of a nuanced dynamic. Yeah, where it's like, and then there's not just the reality of the situation, but there's also like, what is the public perception and what is the public conversation? Like, where are we at as a culture around this? And that's the thing. Back then, people wouldn't have think it was a big deal, but now, in context of say like hate crimes committed during COVID, the idea and like we've gotten much more. I would say it's certainly not that we're like more racist now. We're more race conscious now. If anything, I hope that means we're becoming less racist now. Although who's to say? Because like all this stuff that's coming out, But like so anyway, the point being like, yeah, okay, so you could do that, but then expecting people to put aside the fact like where we are today is like these are the issues we're trying to overcome. There was a comic, I guess I won't name him here to protect, because he was doing jokes he was trying to do jokes, I should say. It was not
he
landing.
He was doing jokes that did not land. Okay.
And knowing him personally, I know this was coming from a good place, but he was trying to do jokes about the fact that like, oh, like, yeah, we complain a lot about like American slavery, but in history, every culture has had or been slaves. And I pulled him aside after the show and I was like, look, you're technically correct. that's not, you're also completely ignoring the context. You're not reading the room, and not just reading this room, but reading the room of like the country right now.
Zeitgeist.
Yeah, the problem with American slavery isn't just the fact that we had slaves. It was, one, it's a particularly brutal form of it, and two, the fact that these injustices are ongoing. The fact that we are currently still trying to fix the hangover from what had happened before. The fact that racial injustice is happening not back in the past and not in the same way that it happened with every culture, but the fact that it is happening now and that we can't understand what's happening now without that context of what happened before. And he actually, to his credit, very much listened to that. And he's like, oh no, like, I totally get it. You're totally right. Like, trying to add this element to the conversation right now is just not helping where we are right now. Comedy is all about subverting expectations, and everyone will have different expectations based on their individual self, also based on their community, their family, and culture. And that's the other thing, is that it's so hard to pick apart. There's so many things that we think are objectively true, and we don't realize, like, no, that's the time and place that you were born. And
Yeah.
and some are very obvious and some less so. So like, I don't know. Yeah. So being born in America and being raised Christian, and so many people will take that for granted as that is the truth. But like, if you were born 3,000 years ago, that was pre-Jesus. So like, of course, you wouldn't grow up thinking any of the things that you think today.
Well,
and
for
so,
me,
like, that's
like,
a simple one. But there's also like the idea, free market capitalism, and how we deal with capitalism is like a modern idea that's only been in existence a few hundred years. Through most of history, we took it for absolute granted that the king was ordained by God. Like, and he was just there to rule. Like things like that, like things that we think are so obvious, that are so self-evident. The fish in water, like what the hell is water? Like there's a lot of things that we can point to and are specifically that we're cognizantly aware of, that we're like, oh yeah, this was probably a product of my time and place. But there's so many things that we think that we don't recognize, that we just are sure are objective and clearly self-evidently true. And yet, like, no, that's also a product of your particular time and place.
Hey, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all going to make mistakes. And can we be vulnerable enough to do those in public and in a public arena on a public platform?
Yeah. Well, and I think if you want to be an artist, certainly if you want to make money doing your art, yeah, that's part of the game. That's what we kind of signed up for, is, yeah. I do wish more people, I hope more people start making art just for themselves, though. Like,
yeah,
I do. Like, I get probably the most that I get out of my comedy is the stuff that's not even funny, but like I sit down and I write, and I get so much out, and I am able to process my feelings. Writing this story about my brother was such a big deal, not just because, like, even if I had decided at the end of it, I don't know if I am ready to present this, the fact that I had made the effort and, like, to the level of my comfort, had been willing to look at this thing squarely for what it is to the best of my ability, that the strength that comes from that, the sort of inner sense of self-esteem that comes from that, the idea of like, I've been through so much, but I had the strength to get through it, and I will keep getting through it. And then, oh my God, like,
and
next level, if you're able to then go present it for other people in a compelling way, that felt incredibly powerful. But even that, I hope everyone understands the benefit to this stuff. Even if you decide to never do it on stage, start looking at yourself.
Yeah, even if you
it's
never,
so valuable.
Even if you never take a picture of it and put it on Instagram.
Right.
I agree with you so much on this, because I need to hear this, and it's so much. In my recovery work, in my therapy, it's so much about processing it, integrating it, and healing. The process of healing, of writing. I need to write right now, and I've been, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I need to write. It's sort of like that whole line, dance like no one is watching.
Yeah.
I need to write like no one is reading it.
Just to sort the truth out for yourself to the best of your ability. And you'll be wrong. And actually, that's some of the benefit. You write some of your own thoughts out, and like these really weird, deep subconscious feelings that you don't even consciously agree with. You'll say something about like you'll wake up and just be like, I'm too small and I'm too weak, and people judge me and hate me for that. Like, that's something that's come up for me. Like, I grew up as kind of a small kid, and I realized, like, I never really acknowledged that, because I pretended that I didn't feel that way. That was part of it, right? You got to puff yourself up, look big, look strong, don't mess with me. And I realized for so many years, I'm like, every time I see how skinny my wrists are, I hate myself a little bit. And then getting it out on paper and looking at it, I was able to sit in it for a minute, and I was able to like, do I really think and feel that way? You know, like consciously no, somewhere in my heart
That
I
is
do.
an old script. That's an old script.
And just being able to sit in it long enough and realizing like, I don't actually think that's where people's value comes from. I mean, and just having that conversation with your inner child, like, look at the most powerful people in the world. They got the biggest biceps. No. Like it's like clearly our value as human beings, like, yeah, physical strength, physical fitness, an excellent quality to have. Is that the only way to be a human? Is that really like, and think about all the actions you've taken in your life, all the things you've really cared about. How many of them involved lifting heavy things? Almost none. And so you don't even enjoy it. So why are you so preoccupied with it? And it comes back to that, you know, like being in the abusive home, feeling like physical force was the only thing that mattered. Like going back to that though, and realizing like, oh, that's probably why I feel that way. Maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually have the importance I was giving it. And I wonder if I can just accept it, just feel it until it sort of burns itself out. And I start to emotionally adjust to the fact that like life is actually much more broad than some subconscious part of me was holding on to, you know?
Yes. And like you were saying earlier about how the body wisdom, like having dialogue with that wrist, having dialogue with that little boy who had the wrist. And then writing that or processing that or just sitting with it. Sitting with stuff is one of the most daring, courageous things we do, and letting the feelings move. In my work, it's so much about unexpressed grief, letting yourself cry that you had to have that belief to survive in your family, you know, that it wasn't a safe place, like really grieving that I didn't feel safe enough to just be me. And I always think of it as settling into a hot tub, you know. It's you've got all this pain in your body. Most of us do. A lot of us ignore it. And so to consciously, when I meditate, it's a little bit like you first put your toe in, you're like, oh, that's hot. And then you kind of get used to it and you just sit in it. And there's such a power and relaxation in being like, yeah, this is warm, but actually like I finally feel whole. Like I finally feel, you know, floaty even. You're in the water. You're letting it pass through you. Yeah, there's almost like it's almost like a weightlessness to it too. Like transparency. Maybe being just that oneness with all that is.
The pain that we try and avoid, the pain of doing the avoiding is often much worse than the pain itself. It's just that it's shocking and it's weird. And we've got these unconscious associations that are, whether it's because, oh, this isn't my identity. If I feel this, it will overwhelm me. If I feel this, it means I'm a bad person. If I feel that, it's not just the feeling, but we have these beliefs around the feeling that keep us from going into it. Right. That's the major thing.
Yeah. And that's the untangling that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
The untangling of those compartments that have protected us. That's so much what we do with trauma therapy and with psychedelic therapy and with comedy. I think we have to have closure. I know we could just keep going.
That's what I was saying. I was like, we could have done this all day.
So people want to reach out to you. Your website is
vonsprecken.com.
Vonsprecken.
Just my name.com.
And then you have a Instagram. They could watch some of your reels.
Yeah. Well, all my links.
Everything will go through your website.
Everything's on my website. I got the social links in like the upper right corner. I got a store. Please buy things.
Oh, that's so awesome. Good job. Good job getting your, I'm excited to see your merch. I think
it's really easy. I got candles and hoodies and like all sorts of.
I gotta check it out.
You should do candles. I bet people would love to buy your Traumedy candles.
Traumedy candles. What scent do you think Traumedy should have?
Oh, I don't know. They have a whole selection.
No, but just think about like I'm just trying to think of a funny like clown. Is it like a note of like dog shit covered with lavender? I don't know. I was trying to think of like
a deflated party balloon. That's that was popped by a cigarette.
Oh, the balloon, a party balloon popped by a cigarette.
Depressed party clown. Is that a scent we can? It smells like flop sweat and like latex from popped balloons and like the inside of like a soaked rubber nose.
A sweaty clown mask.
Running makeup.
You know how the inside of your mask used to smell when you during the pandemic, and you thought, man, I thought it was other people that had shitty breath.
Oh God. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. Okay, I'm going to work on that. Candles, Traumedy candles coming soon.
It's really easy. If you actually, and you set up your website through Squarespace, it's super. I use a thing called Printify, and you just attach it, like automatically publishes. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to show me. Show me how. Actually, I need to do a store because I have the Crybaby Badass hoodies.
I still got mine. I do wear it. Yeah, I should have wore it today. Yeah. No, we match though. We're all purple today.
I know. Purple to me, purple's the healing color. Thank you, Von Sprecken. You're awesome. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Let's be a regular and let's figure out how to do that panel. You know, and whether you teach people to do stand up step, or I think the idea of just creating a little cartoon for them in the moment during a show, at least give them, they can take that away. And anytime they start getting into this activation around their trauma, think about this little cartoon.
Or, actually, we'll do this after the
That'll be
recording,
another
there's
episode.
so many, just the process of, because I've started helping certain comedians with this, the whole, like talking them through, like, why do you want to talk about this? What is
find the funny. What are you expressing? How to get that vicarious or direct trauma out of your body.
And it's interesting how
that's what we
it often just unconsciously starts to come out.
I think a lot of people do it naturally. Like nurses, I have another Nurses Off the Chart show in Dallas. I think it's April 3rd. I have a Heroes Off Duty show I'm doing now. Heroes Off Duty, which you could possibly get on that tour.
I would love that.
It's a lot of EMTs, police officers, military, healthcare professionals.
Yeah, awesome.
So there's lots of outlets for it.
That sounds exactly my demographic. So
All right. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
I want to thank my guest, Von Sprecken. Go to vonsprecken.com, VONSPRECKEN.com. I want to thank my son for creating the music for Traumedy. And I want to thank you, the listener, for witnessing this. And please reach out to me if you'd like to be a guest, or if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. And thank you again. Whew, we're going to get through this together. We're going to be birthing doulas. We are going to keep each other company as we birth consciousness. And yes, it's painful, but I think it's going to be worth it. I do think, as dark as things might seem, the light is even bigger. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind and support those who are suffering the most under this administration. Thank you. Peace and love. And remember, no matter what, keep laughing.